Webinar. My name is Maguire. I'm the Carbon Project Manager at Climate Neutral Group South Africa, and I'm going to talk you through some of the key features of the program and how it is that you can get involved. Firstly, let me start by introducing Climate Neutral Group. Our company was founded in 2002 in the Netherlands by the Triodos Bank and the Dun Foundation. Since that time, we've expanded to have offices outside of the Netherlands in South Africa, Belgium, and Switzerland, where the bulk of our workforce is based in the EU, where most of our clients within the international voluntary markets are. Over the last 20 years, we've helped over 3,000 companies to offset over 10 million tons of carbon dioxide and help the sustainability of the planet in the process. So what is the AgriCarbon program? The AgriCarbon program is South Africa's first verified carbon program that allows farmers to be able to quantify the soil carbon sequestered in their soils and the emission reductions that have been reduced from reduced fertilizer application, to quantify that and certify that, and from that process generate high quality carbon offsets that we can sell in the international voluntary markets and in the South African regulatory markets where we have to, in order to be able to generate income for you. So why do I mention these two different markets? Well, they're two very different places to sell. The South African regulatory market is quite a new market and came about only 2 years ago as part of the Carbon Offset Administration system established by national government. What we see in this market is that there is very high demand for carbon credits at quite a low price. The companies that are engaging in this market are trying to reduce their carbon tax liability, and they will only pay about 90% of the carbon tax rate per ton for a carbon offset. This means that for 2022 in this market, we will envisage seeing about 115 Rand a ton being the average sales price. That's why we don't want to focus on this market. Where we want to focus is on the European voluntary market and American voluntary markets, where we're seeing prices of up to $20 or $25 a ton. That's one of the reasons why Climate Neutral Group's a strong and established sales force in the European market in particular provides such additional comfort and security to you as a farmer in knowing that we will be able to get you the best possible price for your carbon. So how much carbon can you look at being able to get from your farm? Well, that is quite a dynamic situation, and it is incredibly variable dependent on soil types, biomes, rainfall, evapotranspiration rates, and different types of land management practices. So we are very hesitant about going out there and issuing blanket statements about how much soil carbon you can expect per hectare. But the table that I'm pointing to you towards here on the slide gives you an indication of roughly what the averages are across different types of land management practices across South Africa. So what you can look at is some of the higher end activities, such as changing over from conventional tillage to no tillage, can be up to 1.4 tons per hectare per annum, and other activities such as rotational grazing can increase soil carbon up to 2.2 tons per hectare per annum. Similarly speaking, engaging in binary and multi-species mixtures on your land can also have really high impacts as well. One of the other key features of the program, and something that you really need to be aware of for this audit cycle, the way that the program works is that every year we will open up a window for farmers in order to be able to submit their data into the program. When that window closes, we begin our auditing cycle. And it's not us that are auditing the data. We obviously need to process the data, but we are required to appoint an independent third-party assessor. In this case, the company's name is SES Global, based out of the United States, who will look through all of our information and all of the data provided by you and ensure that it is correct and robust. They will also want to come out and do some site inspections on a few of the farms, so we may just be paying you a visit in person. However, one of the key things to note is that due to the rules of the methodology that we are developing the program under, the VM42 methodology, we are allowed in the first period to use backdated data for as far back as 2017 in order to be able to generate carbon revenue. We can only do that in the first audit cycle, which is the cycle that closes now at the end of September 2021. Once you have passed that audit cycle closing point, you can still enter into the program, but your ability to be able to enter data that goes back as far as 2017, unfortunately, is no longer there. You will only be able to enter the most recent year's worth of data. So there is a significant opportunity that is presenting itself to farmers now. So why does this process take so long, and where is the value that we add as Climate Neutral Group? Well, you guys as the farmers have done all the hard work of doing the regenerative and conservation agricultural practices on your land. But that data that you've provided and the records that you've been keeping around your land management practices needs to get converted into a carbon offset. That means applying a methodology, in this case, the VM42 Improved Agricultural Land Use Methodology by the AgriCarbon standard. We apply a methodology for quantifying and monitoring and evaluating all of the data that we get from you. Once we have gathered that data and processed it, we then pass it on to our auditors. This company, SES Global, will then work with us and look at all of the data that we've gathered and go through an extensive process, probably over about 9 months, in order to be able to ensure that it is robust and correct. Once they are satisfied, they will then pass the information along to the AgriCarbon standard company themselves, who will then assess the data once more. It is an incredibly rigorous process, and it is for this reason that people have such high confidence in the quality of the carbon credits that we generate through the program. At the end of Q3 next year, we anticipate having concluded this program, and at that point in time, we will be able to sell on your carbon credits to our clients, some of those 3,000 companies that we've helped all around the world. It should take us until the end of December next year in order to be able to sell all of those credits. And once we've concluded that, we will issue you with a purchase order that you can issue us an invoice against relative to the amount of carbon that came from your land. And within 30 days, we will pay you. So what are the commercial terms of the contract? Well, importantly, the Climate Neutral Group has to have a carbon registry account with Vera as an organization in order to be able to issue the carbon credits. So once we've submitted all of the data, Vera will issue the carbon credits into our account, and we will then be in a position where we can start to trade it. It is important for you to note that Vera requires us, in order to be able to keep 15% of the total carbon offsets generated through the program each year as a buffer amount. What this buffer is basically an insurance program to ensure that if any farmers drop out of the program, or if there are soil carbon reversals due to climatic conditions or changes in land use management practices, that no individual farmer ends up becoming liable for the reduction in soil carbon or the emissions that come from the land. Also, contractually, you are protected against any event like that happening as a result of our very careful contracting process. The contract that we will issue you is for a 5-year period, and then thereafter will automatically renew itself on a year-by-year basis. However, it is very important to point out that if you would like to pull out, all you need to do is write to us and submit a letter stating that you would like to withdraw from the program, and we can withdraw you at any time. The data that you have entered into the auditing cycle, though, that is locked away inside the auditing cycle. So only future data you will be able to pull out. If you stay with the program for 5 years, we will then give you an additional 5% of the total value of your payments that we've made to you. We will then give you an additional loyalty bonus to the value of that 5%. Additionally, with that buffer, that 15% buffer that we're holding that Vera is holding as insurance, if that is not used during the 5-year period, whatever remains from that 15%, we will be able to pay out to you at the rate that we are able to sell the carbon for in 5 years' time. So what is the payment rate? Well, one of the things that you will notice about our payment rate is that it is a percentage of our weighted average sales price. In this case, on a year-on-year basis, we will give you 55%, and then again, the 5% at the end of the 5-year period. But that 55% is our weighted average sales price. So if we have one client that buys 10,000 units for $20 a ton, and another client who buys 100,000 units for $18 a ton, We have to lump all of those individual sales amounts together, and we get an average sales amount, which you will then be able to issue an invoice to us against. What we do know is that our absolute minimum sales amount that we can look at is the regulatory market here in South Africa. That's our fallback position, so that we know that we can guarantee you that we will sell your credits. And that minimum amount is 115 Rand a ton in 2022. That means that at 55%, you are guaranteed an amount of 65 Rand per ton in 2022 for every carbon credit that you generate. But that can extend up much higher, even up to the range of $25 per ton. How it works with the invoicing is that you issue us with a purchase order once we've completed the sales, and then we will pay you within 30 days of having received your invoice. To give you an idea of how that works out practically, Climate Neutral Group has worked extensively with the dairy industry in South Africa. And what we know from looking at our averages, the average dairy farmer has a farm of 250 hectares and is sequestering soil carbon at a rate of 5 tons per hectare per annum. That means that he is sequestering 1,250 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent on his land on a yearly basis. At that minimum sales price of 65 Rand per ton, we're looking at 82,000 Rand per year. At the upper end of our sales price, when we're looking at $25 a ton, then you would be looking at 250,000 Rand per year for that 250 hectare farm. Because of the fact that we can backdate in this first audit cycle, what that means is that we can use data going back as far as 2017, and that can result in 4 years worth of that 82,000 Rands worth of revenue, or 4 years worth of that 250,000 Rands worth of revenue, and anywhere in between. So we can look at between 410 and 1 million Rands worth of payout for farmers who have done well in sequestering soil carbon between 2017 and now. So what kinds of data do we need? Well, we need to know if you look on your screen, you can see that we need to know the following pieces of information. It is not essential that you have every single piece of information for all of the years required. But remember, the better the data that you have, the better the carbon that we can issue to you. So we are looking at your available tillage details. We're looking at cropping cycles. We're looking at the produce that you make from your land and also your harvesting, including cover crops and residues. We're looking at fertilizer application. We're looking at livestock management. Soil data is always very useful, but not essential. Again, we are able to use some proxies in the event that that is not always available. Fuel use is also highly advantageous, as is water management regimes per field. It is also important to note that for every field that you wish to enter into the program, because that is how we need to gather the data, we need to have GPS coordinates for each field. So the anticipated timelines, as I've mentioned, we need to conclude the integration of data into the program by the end of September this year. And then we will look at being able to issue the credits by the end of quarter 3, 2022. Then we will engage in the sales process throughout the end of the year next year, and by 31 December, we will have been able to generate a weighted average sales price. You then issue us with a purchase order, and we will then receive your invoice and pay you within 30 days of having received it. How the sign-on process works is you visit the www.agricarbon.co.za website and complete our registration form, which will give us an idea of the broad level of eligibility of your farm into the program. We then go through a query resolution process with you, both in terms of giving some broad carbon estimates, as well as talking through the terms of the contract. Once you have signed the contract, we are then able to enter your data into our official processing pool. That means that you will need to set up a meeting with our data team leads, and they will then process your data and give you a much more accurate figure around what it is that we can look at being able to generate from a carbon offset perspective on your land. Once we've developed that level of information for your land, we then go through the process with our external auditors and with Vero Carbon Standard, and then at the end of quarter 3 next year, issue the carbon credits and begin the sales process. If you do have any additional queries about this program, please don't hesitate to send me a mail on gray.maguire@climateneutralgroup.com, or you can find our telephone contact details on our website as well. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to welcoming you into our program.